All right, hello today. I will be presenting on emotionally focused therapy activity. It's called an EFT enactment, and it is about coaching contact and attachment between clients. So this is based on an article I found that I really like from 2013 from Tilly and Palmer. And rather than teaching family members communication skills, we're asking them to do problem solving. It helps them deeper their emotional attunement directly with one another, and then the therapist or counselor carefully guides the interaction. So, in this presentation today, I will briefly explain the theory behind enactments, how they're different from skills-based training, when they should and should not be used, the three phases of an enactment, and the four types described in the literature, and then I will do an example briefly, and then some important cultural considerations. So the theoretical rationale is based on attachment theory, which is developed by John Bowlby. It suggests that humans are wired for emotional safety and security in close relationships, and then when those attachment needs aren't met, people can become anxious or avoidant, critical, defensive, withdrawn, all those things. So the problem isn't just poor communication skills; it's actually emotional disconnection between family members. So Tilly and Palmer in the article, I like this quote. So the goal isn't a better argument, it's a moment of real contact. And so these enactments are like the basic building blocks of EFT because they help each family member connect with their emotional experience and then actually share it in a real interaction between different family members. So this approach combines, experiential work on inner experience from Carl Rogers, and then also systemic work in the room in the family system and choreography of interactions from Minution. So these are some things cited in the other article. Um, yeah, and again, I guess the goal is the contact, emotional contact and the relationship between members, not the content of the what's being said necessarily, and that's why it's effective. So, like I said, this is not communication skills training, and this is good stuff. I mean, the I statements, things like that are, reflective listening, conversation rules, things like that all definitely have value, but they're based on skill teaching, and that's not what EFT is, or what this activity is. So, this activity is instead of like asking clients to follow a script, um, the therapist generally will wait for like genuine emotion to come up in the session naturally, and then at that point intervene or invite family members to share more and do it directly with one another, and then coach them through that. Um, so yeah, there's on the bottom here I have a thing. So from an article that they cited in the Tilly one was that um, studies between EFT and more like behavioral methods actually show that EFT has higher rates of success, less relapse rates, and then they learn communication skills and problem solving just as well or better than couples that have been taught those skills directly. The implication behind that theoretically would be that as you improve attachment security, healthier communication, better problem solving flows naturally from the healthier attachment, healthier relationships. So where this activity fits is, or when it's appropriate, I should say, is when there's already a basis of trust in the therapy relationship and a decent therapeutic alliance. When there's a like clear negative repeating cycles of communication happening in the family, and like I said, in the moments where emotion is emerging naturally, and as long as the family members can tolerate, direct communication, some emotional work, and trust the therapist to guide that. So times where it's not useful, crisis moments, active safety concerns, violence, um, if uh, if the clients don't have, enough emotional capacity to self-regulate and or enough insight into their emotions, yeah, that would not probably be useful. And then obviously, there's also cultural and developmental factors that would call for adjusting adjusting when this is appropriate as well. And we do need to take those into consideration, and I have a slide on that later. So the three phases of the enactment model is setting the stage. So you want to have emotional context from the family already, and you don't want to rush into it. You want to explore the emotions and help the clients imagine and participate. And then also, so then we get into directing contact. So very simple things are, when you're facilitating with the client, help them, encourage them to tell another member of the family of what they're thinking, what they're saying, and then to feel like what that would be like, or feel like what it is like. Um, and this, one of my favorite parts of the thing I read was a term called catching the bullet. So, sort of when things escalate into like criticism attacks, so on like that, the therapist should catch the bullet and de-escalate that, contain that, and keep things um, sort of focused on the emotion and the sharing and the authenticity. And then after all of that, that moment of connection that's created, you want to process it. So ask them what it was like to communicate that way, validate what they're saying, heighten the positive things that surface up, what they weren't aware before to help insight, and then help incorporate these connections into like a new family story, new family narrative, and new pattern, hopefully. So it tries to sort of change the family's narrative or the couple's narrative from conflict and direct it more towards connection. So that's how we do this, or one of the ways we do this. So there are four types of EFT enactments. I will just focus on number four for this activity, but number one is at the beginning. It's more towards like assessment, so observing how family members are interacting. And then number two, um, heightening. So when moments come up that are rare, whether it's a vulnerability or emotion, just to draw attention to it or to positively reinforce it. Three, the present position. When people realize kind of they're stuck in their cycle or what they're talking about, just help people sort of verbalize and understand like the cycle that's happening and also to enter into it a little bit deeper rather than just like analyze it. And then finally, like I said, the one we'll focus on today is four. So the most common type is helping clients get have new reacting to new primary emotions. So obviously like anger is super common, criticism, attack, and then accessing the emotions that are behind that, whether it's like fear, longing, feeling hurt, feeling lonely, um, vulnerable, afraid, whatever, like the stuff that's underneath the anger and the conflict that's constantly coming up that clients might not be aware of. So just a quick example here. Um, this is just like hypothetical, but would be like a classic moment. And I didn't go through I broke it up into the stages here, so it's not like a full discussion, but it sort of illustrates each stage, and then hopefully you can still follow it. But so in this example, a client is saying, they have sort of like an avoidant attachment style. They shut down. Um, when they feel criticized or they avoid, they disengage. So as a counselor, you could say, well, I noticed you go quiet when things get tense. What's that like for you? The husband might say, I don't know, I just shut down. And then a counselor could say, well, what does going quiet, shutting down protect you from? To get the client to think and process a little bit deeper what's going on. And then you want to stage two, direct that, whatever he says, to his spouse or to the other person in the family. So could you turn and let her know that underneath the quiet is a fear of never getting it right? So husband might say to his wife, when you get frustrated with me, I feel like a failure and I just want to disappear. So, and then the processing aspect here would be asking the wife afterwards, okay, so what is it like to hear that? And this is optimistic. Hopefully she says, well, I had no idea that was happening and I thought you just didn't care. So that would provide some insight for both of them into the cycle and their relationship pattern, and then also help them model and understand how to um, realize what's going on a little bit deeper under the surface, and then how to communicate, get comfortable communicating that with each other directly, which builds connection versus escalating conflict and reinforcing patterns. So, um, like I promised, some cultural and systemic considerations, obviously between different cultures and in different families. Emotional disclosure can differ. It's not everybody, processes and shares emotions the same way culturally or in a family. So keeping that in mind, obviously the power and the hierarchy in the family, so the roles and the family and the cultural expectations around age, gender, family position, and just sort of like the unspoken rules about how people communicate and having awareness of those. And then having an awareness of how changing the communication patterns can change the hierarchy in the family. Um, and so the primary emotions we talked about, like what's underneath the emotion, not to make assumptions necessarily that we know what it is, but actually be curious and when we're probing or working with the clients of if if there's exhibiting anger, not to assume that we know what's underneath their anger, right? Like let them actually share and understand it. What's below the reactive conflict emotion. And then obviously the context, part four is the context, like outside of the room, the larger systemic stuff, the bigger life things, immigration, poverty, racism, trauma, all those things that shape a family and shape ways of interacting and stuff too, all important to keep in mind. Um, so yeah, here are some of my references. The main one is this Tilly Palmer 2013 article, and then the other stuff I think I got all just from that article, if I remember. So um, but yeah, it's where I'll attach that too. I thought it was worth reading, and they even go through examples in more detail. But yeah, this is like a great activity. I have seen this in my internship a couple times too. I didn't know it was called this, but I thought it was really effective for me. I was impressed with it. It's just like guiding. It's these opportunities to guide family members to increase, just like better attachment related behavior, better connection, better emotional sharing, insight. And then the idea is hopefully they continue that outside of the room too. And it seems to work. The studies are there too that are good. So um, yeah, increasing all this, the security, these relationship stuff a lot has all these trickle down effects too into the communication patterns and problem solving, all those stuff too. So, um, anyways, yeah, thank you. This was a fun one to put together, and I learned a lot from thinking about this too. So,